We need to be able to have conversations without feeling like we're going to say something that gets us thrown in jail because people happen to be offended.
Do you know what you believe?
All right, dudes, we are back with another Pangburn Hangout. Great to be with you again. This is Travis Pangburn, and today is the moral dilemma with Alexander because, of course, it's Morality Monday. And the topic Alex has gone with today is morality and relationships. How's it going today, Alex? Good. I'm going to turn you up a bit so I can hear what's going on. Okay, now I think I'm good on my end. So, what brought you to this topic? Is there something going on in your life with regards to relationships? Always? Check one. Oh, I might have lost you, Alex. Check. Are you there? TD. Technical difficulties. While we wait, listen to this. The most beautiful rendition of... why can't I think of a single song right now? What I was going to do was like an elevator music version of maybe Your Song by Elton John. Are you there, Alex? Here, let me go. I'm going to move him down there, then move him back here. Check. Huh. Are you there now? Huh. Everyone stand by. I think he's still alive. He's trying to communicate with us from the other side. Oh, he sent me a DM. I won't open it up on the desktop or else you guys could see. I'm sure he's swearing into his computer. He says he can hear me. Maybe it's me. I'll try rejoining. Yo, you there? Check. This is weird. Interesting. So he can hear me. It's got to be an issue with Alex's device. Very strange. We'll get it sorted and then get started. I asked a question, do you need to be morally similar to have a successful relationship with another? Do you think it's plausible that someone may be very morally different than their partner and they can have a decent relationship? Would be another way to put that. And it sounds like Alexander thinks that similar morals are important in relationship. I think it depends on what idea or what thing is being judged morally. what are the particular good and bad metrics that would not really affect the relationship in a negative way? Like something like, is it morally good to shop at Walmart? Maybe that wouldn't get in the way of the relationship very much, even though there's a moral difference there. Or there may be. Someone might think it's immoral to shop at Walmart. The other person might think it's great. They love Walmart. Alex said he is restarting Discord. I'm going to send a couple invites while we're waiting. Feel free to drop your comments in the comment section. Relationships. Let's see who else will join us. You there, Alex? Check. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you're coming through.
Okay. Yeah, we're just going to restart the computer and do this by phone for a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Cool. I'm just going to turn you up a little bit more. So, yeah, morality in relationships. You think it's important?
Yeah, I do. And I kind of miss.
Oh. You just muted for a second there. We lost Alex again. Are you there? Yay. Yeah, we got you.
Okay, we're going to stick with phone for today then.
Oh, okay. Something's going on with... Oh, you know what it might be? Oh, no, you don't use OBS. I was going to say that they did an OBS update today, which seems to be working fine so far. But anyways.
Well, could be that. It's on my computer. But anyway, I've heard you say a number of times when talking about relationships that, sexual compatibility is really important. And I disagree with parts of that. But I do think that some semblance of moral compatibility is important. And I caught a bit of what you said shortly ago, like, maybe your morality on the stamp of Walmart isn't super important, that you might be able to pass on.
Right.
But a lot of the basics I think are important. How you live your life in a lot of ways. If it's the kind of relationship where you plan on rearing children, it's going to be very important for their consistency.
Right.
I think even to an extent, not just romantic relationships, but family relationships and friendships. In part, the morality is going to play a role, not maybe to as much of a degree, but that's one of the things we kind of talk about today is, when does that play in and should it?
Right. Well, what about check 1 2? I'm just I've readjusted my microphone settings, so I'm just trying to find the sweet spot. What about, like, let's talk about sex for a minute. Morality in the bedroom is likely going to come up. Someone might, want to try something or engage in something that the other person thinks is immoral, like choking or something like that, because it's like it mirrors something, a real issue, and they think it's immoral to perpetuate that.
And I think it becomes an issue depending on how important that thing is to you. I mean, obviously, how important it is to you. Is that your biggest, non-negotiable or what? But also, is the sex itself, how important is that? If that's not important to your relationship, maybe it's something very infrequent. I don't know, depending on the couple. Yeah, it's going to be a huge stopping point in the progression of that relationship.
Right. I'm just getting things adjusted here. I was having a
That's
problem
fine.
as well.
And hi,
Right.
Divine Evil. I see you showed up, so hello. We're
Hello.
having audio issues today.
All kinds of stuff. It's exciting. Yeah, we're good now.
So what's the talk today?
Morality and relationships. More generally, we kind of started with the intimate relationship route, and whether or not morals are important. And at least I'm saying, and I think Travis at least mostly seems to agree with it, that it could be very important. I mean, your morality on shopping at Walmart maybe isn't, but the big stuff for even what you do in the bedroom could be very important, morally speaking.
Yeah, and we can point to eating meat as well, right? Diet.
Oh yeah. and the funny thing is, like, I know of couples who, the two people have very different diets, and they make it work, and they have an arrangement, they cook separate food, whatever works
Right.
for them, fine. But also it can be very frustrating to live that way and do that all the time, especially if someone has a certain aversion, like a strong, particularly moral aversion, like I don't eat meat and it's wrong to eat meat, and are you really going to put up with a significant other who does?
You can. There's only two options. You either put up with it, or you shower in bacon grease every single morning.
Oh gosh, I like meat, but I don't know if I could shower in bacon.
No,
grease.
you only
That's
get two
that's
options.
A big step.
It's either no meat or that.
Ugh. Is there a second shower that doesn't involve grease afterward?
Okay, fine. 1/3 option: death.
Oh, okay.
I'll happily
That
die
works
then.
Reminds me of the old Eddie Izzard cake or death bit.
Well, we do. One thing I did want to say is we have Divine Evil in the room. I wonder if we could examine some relationship morality, general differences between Russia and the West.
Ooh, that is a good point.
Well, I don't know if I like the right person to provide you like a
Have you-
correct.
Divine,
Like,
have you ever known a woman or a man?
A couple of women,
Okay.
certainly, but like I'm a lone guy most of the time, and like the first several attempts at like long-term relationship were pretty hard because like a lot of Russian girls have like very emotional approach where they either like force you to change to meet their demands, or they like when they see that it doesn't work and you tell them no, you cannot change what I like prefer to stay as, and that creates a lot of conflict. Because from one end you like trying to respect their autonomy and their like direction in life, and at the same time they are trying to tell you that like the gaming is wrong, you're playing too many games, or this work you're doing is not something you should do because it's unreliable, and like trying to dictate you how you should live your life, and it becomes very frustrating pretty.
Well, I was just going to say,
Francisco.
I mean, this is the evidence we've been looking for. This is crystal clear now that every single woman is the exact same.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the only the type I seen like in my early days, and right now I like mostly just, browse for Tinder and look for someone, to just hang out and have a good time, but no long-term relationship plans at the
interesting.
moment.
I-
Because again, it's like I personally, like, it's my preference not to share my personal life with my friends, for example.
Interesting.
And yeah, like,
So you're not going to be the guy in the hockey dressing room being like, "Hey, guess what? Me and the wife just tried last night."
Yes, I'm not that. I'm not the guy who gonna like share my stories about
What if I
this
Okay,
girl
what
I met the other day and how we like made it happen.
made it happen?
Yeah.
Come on, this isn't Sesame Street. You put your wiener inside her buns.
And my best friend, like he likes to like to tell me the stories about how he meets this one girl who is like a perfect fit, only to like in a month time tell me that he's crazy and he drives him insane and he cannot bear with it any longer. And I'm just sitting there studying all the time, trying to understand why cannot you understand that it's not as simple as you always seem to think.
Hang on, did you say he said she had perfect feet?
No, like a perfect fit for him. Like
Oh,
he's
okay.
the perfect girl.
I just thought you were evaluating women based on how perfect their feet were.
Yeah, like he has a preference for Asian girls because they seem to be more like I don't know how to like more. No, this one is wrong. Like
more like role playing in like the role of a woman versus a role of a man, maybe.
Well, kind of like it's not an obedient; it's a different word. I just can't.
Yeah,
more
right
understanding,
now.
Maybe.
Well, maybe like more.
Grant, it sounds like you're talking about they grant more deference to the man and his stance on things, like maybe less assertive with an opinion.
Oh yeah, like never mind. Like they just adapt better to the man they're trying to live with, but still there's always some like quirks, and if you have like sometimes there is problems with weed because it's illegal in Russia, and and they bring it up all the time and trying to like they have like some preconditioned opinions about it, and you're trying to like wrestle with their.
And you're sitting there smoking a spliff and being like, "Hey, come on, it's not that bad."
Well, yeah, like she can see that nothing really changes about you. It's not like you're doing heroin and suddenly
I was gonna say, in Russia, do they give ads like on TV where it would show like maybe a meth addict who's like on their 15th year of using and be like, "This is what marijuana will do to you." That's the kind of propaganda I would run.
I guess it was the case for America in the early days.
Yeah, the crack cocaine scare.
First of all, like I haven't watched TV for 8 or 9 years by now. Wow. I have no TV in my home. It's complete garbage. For all I remember, I just took a sneak peek on it like once in a while, and it's still the same garbage, the same programming. I just don't buy it. But either way, like the morality in relationships is probably one of the most difficult things to deal with and to find a good match which will like if you are a smart person and you have very peculiar interests and hobbies, all this stuff, it's very difficult to negotiate with someone who is different.
I think you make a good point, and I mean, I will say relationships. I think compromise is very important. But if someone, because I think you said this earlier, Divine Evil, about she's if she's trying to change you or dictate what you should do or something like that, like if someone wants you to change everything that you are and you're willing to do that, then to me, that's not really a moral foundation or a sense of identity in general. If you're willing to flip on all of that for someone, if you actually believe something, shouldn't sacrifice it for the relationship. Find someone who's more aligned. But I get that can be hard too, and not discrediting that.
Yeah, it's difficult to find a good balance between someone who is completely conformative and doesn't really play an active role in the relationships, but at the same time doesn't trying to override your own directions, your own ideas about life. And sometimes there is just women like that who are completely conformative and they submissive in the relationship, and that's not really much better than a girl who just fucks your mind every day.
Are those two things mutually exclusive?
They are mutually exclusive. They are different sides of the coin.
That's a beautiful YouTube clip right there. So where did you want to go with this, Alec? Oh, go ahead. Do I?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I my first actual obsession about the girl ended pretty abruptly because that girl gone into a cult, into Kabbalah. Cabal. Yeah.
Oh, into a cabal. Ah.
Yeah, so she was very, very beautiful girl, smart. Also had completely, what do you know, very free opinion about weed, about the lifestyle, and suddenly she joins that cabal, changes her entire personality, finds a guy from the same cult, and start to spread this nonsense about the cult. And you just have to cut the girl who you liked the most in your life. You have to cut her from your life entirely. That's not very fun. And after that, you just become a little bit skeptical about every case.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, you also are more you're trying to meet this, compromise in the relationship, and you start to realize that you're basically making some critical changes about yourself which make you suffer just to maintain the relationship. And over time you realize that you cannot do it any longer. You break the relationship, and in the further relationships you decide to stand the ground and you say, no, I will not change this part of me. And again, that in this situation it then hurts the other person. So it's difficult.
It is. We'll come back around with that. Hi there, Mace. Or not Mace, Mr. Contradiction. I went by profile picture. I'm sorry. How are you? Thoughts on morality and relationships?
Yeah, don't get me confused with Mace ever again. They're completely different people.
I didn't realize there had been name change, but go forth, Mr. Contradiction, and tell us what you think of the topic.
Yeah. What's the topic?
Morality and relationships. So do you think having similar morals, or at least relatively agreeable ones, is important to an intimate relationship? We'll talk about other relationships later.
Yeah, of course, it helps. It's not the most important thing, though.
One thing I want to add here is, can't a complete, like, adversity of morality result in some dynamite sex?
How so?
I don't know. Like, if you just, like, if you can't fucking agree on a simple good or bad thing, it's like everything. Every good movie the other person likes, you think is absolute shit. Vice versa. The color of paint you can't agree on. But that constant battling maybe creates something in the bedroom? Anyone?
I think there is some correlation with that. Like, if you're meeting the confrontational girl, she's usually very very aggressive and funky.
Did you see what Bad Karma said, Alex? If you
I
both
did.
have different morals, he's talking about kids. Of course, we're going to get down to, like, how this manifests if you do decide to have kids, right? Because that example I brought up of, like, the sexual romp couple might not be the best suited to raise children together, but maybe not.
Yeah,
right?
no, it would be a problem with kids because you'd be fighting with your partner constantly on how exactly you want to raise them.
But if you could do that in a constructive way, of course, if no one's, if there's no, like, give and take, then you're going to get nowhere. But what if the people still had this, they were just like, just morally on different sides of the coin, but they could have good conversations and come to good compromises that resulted in good things for the children.
I think that's unlikely because
I agree it's unlikely.
There
but
are some philosophies that you can't compromise between. Like,
Sure.
For me, for example, I think that kids should not be brought up with politics in their life. If I ever have kids, I'm going to just not talk to them about politics. I want them to make their own mind up about it when they're an adult. And if my partner thinks, actually, no, I want to bring my kids up to be highly politically engaged and I want them to subscribe to the same political agenda as I do, as she does, then how do we compromise between me not wanting my kids to be political and her wanting them to be not only political but the same politics as her?
Yeah, I think it'd be weird if you want your children to have the same politics as you. But I know a lot of people are like that.
I think most people are like that. That's why
probably
most
right.
people have the same politics as their parents.
That's why most people get divorced.
I think in theory it's possible. I mean, you could have a strong, say, take politics because we're on it. You could have two people on different sides of the political aisle and raise children effectively and communicate, hey, we have a difference in this area and that's commendable and blah, blah. And, raise the kids perfectly fine. I don't think that happens often. It probably leads to problems when people try, but it could be done. I would hesitate to say you should raise children if your relationship altogether is built on contradiction and rage. Like, if your sign of affection is just yelling at each other incessantly, you should probably not bring children
Go
into
to the
that.
doctor and get that checked.
Yeah, that's not a healthy relationship. I don't think it's psychologically healthy for the people in it, even if they think it's working. But if you have one big thing that you maybe argue about, sometimes you could do it. I mean, it depends on how involved you make the kids. If you keep the yelling reasonable and you have good discussion and you acknowledge you disagree and you're not using the kid as a pawn in your argument, sure, you could do it.
Yeah. I have to address something. So critical thought says, I want my children to have the same values. I think that's dumb. Shouldn't you want your kid to have better values than you have? Shouldn't that be the dream?
Well, surely you wouldn't hold values that you think are inferior to other values. So in his mind, he holds the best values there are.
Oh, see, you should never think you hold the best values there are. You should say, I have the best values that I've been convinced of at this time. But I'm talking about if you're wishing for, the future of your children, shouldn't you wish for them to have better values than you have? And of course, the metric to use what better means has to be decided upon by the moral agent. But wouldn't you wish for better?
Well, I think it depends on. I think the disagreement would be more on deviation. So, like, my guess, and I don't know critical thought, but my guess is, she probably wants, the children to have very similar values, and if the children have like an evolved version of those values, that's probably an agreeable good thing. Oh, it's my values, but like given knowledge we have now, that's great, because 20 years from now, knowledge is different than now knowledge.
I think you addressed the platitude and how it's used, and I'm trying to look at like the actual statement and show my problem with the platitude, I guess, because I hear people say that all the time.
Well, yeah, and he just posted, whoever they are, they should hold values that are similar to mine. They can have better ones, sure, but there are better values objectively.
Ooh.
So yeah, and we can debate that point. I think Trav's itching to. I guess where I would be concerned is if your children deviate from your values and they take a stance opposed to one that you hold.
Right.
What is your outlook on that? I mean, I guess I would say, like, if I were a parent, like, and my children held different values than I do, I wouldn't necessarily shun them for that. Maybe I'm disappointed, depending on what the values are. But if they've looked into it and read and come to what they feel is a rational decision, and they can explain their decision to me, that's plenty respectable. I may not want them to think that way, but I can at least admire, hey, I raised a kid that went through the work to come up with a value. Right. And that's probably a better skill than anything.
What if they're bigoted values?
Yeah, I guess I would have the same stance, at least, I want them to at least be well reasoned about the thing. I mean, my personal stance is that, depending on what you mean by bigoted, because people are defining that different ways nowadays.
So, like, racist or something.
Yeah, I don't think that value pays in society. In the closest way we have to an objective value, I don't think there's evidence to show that is ever beneficial to you or anyone else. So I would advise the kid not do it and provide them reasons why, hey, this has like never worked for anyone ever. But, also they have autonomy. And once they're an adult and not under my control, if they choose to do that, I can't stop them, honestly. And I don't want to run
I thought you
their
meant
life.
When your child is growing up, you'd raise them in a way where you're sort of just letting them choose their own values. And I'd kind of disagree with that. If my kids were turning racist as they're growing up, then I would just put a stop to that. I'd be like, no, sorry, I'm putting my foot down on this. You need to treat everyone equally.
Oh, sure. I would agree with you on that. I mean, it depends on what it is and what the child's doing that I would allow them to have values. Like if I'm trying to think of a good example. Like I don't consider myself a stoic or a follower of stoicism, but if my child over time is starting to go that way, I don't necessarily see any huge problem with that. I might let them kind of try to express and explore that. If the child is going around like punching kids of other races, like, oh no, we're done. I put a stop to that.
Well, you always
come
can
on, you're so
argue your
oppressive.
position. Like the overarching problem is that not a lot of people know how to argue instead of blaming or judging or like putting someone down for the opinions they have. We have to be better educated in order to argue for our position and argue why some positions are better than others.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everyone should have a reason why they believe the things that they believe as opposed to anything else. And you should have good reasons for those things. You know, with children in particular, I think it's helpful to have rules. And a while back, someone on the Discord mentioned like, you know, teaching kids religion can be helpful. And I don't want to get into that debate, but having a set of core rules that you can teach them of what's right and what's wrong, and maybe you don't even need to explain why, I think can be helpful. I mean, teach your kids don't steal. Teach your kids don't murder people. I think there's great reason for that. We can all kind of agree on, if for no other reason than the society we live in, or at least the one I live in, does not permit that. But when we're talking about more of the abstract kind of nuances of things like politics or, you know, just personal way of living life, I'm willing to allow some more flexibility.
Well, yeah, like again, I think that if your child has some like controversial opinion or like moral judgment, you can always ask them why they think that, how they learned about that, and what is their end goal. It's a problem of educating people how to convey human values to each other, because the children do not learn that skill in school. They learn math and all the different sciences and language and all that, but I don't remember like anywhere in school being taught how to reason with people and how to evaluate different moral decisions. And their parents are the same. They never were taught that. They do not know how to properly tell their children why something is wrong without just saying because it is wrong. Because I say it so. Just the same way as a religion does. And it's very not fulfilling the task.
Well, yeah, and I guess what I would say to that is just you should have, or try to have, developmentally appropriate rationales for things. And some things maybe you don't explain, but you do that within a certain level of reasoning. You know, if the child says, you know, I want to go murder people, like, no, we shouldn't murder people. You know, that doesn't help us, and it's not good for people. You should be nice to them. Blah blah. Provide them some child level explanation if that's the age that they're at. If the kid's older and you want to get into the philosophy of it and how it impacts world markets or whatever, go ahead. I would say, you know, you don't, if your child wants to know why you voted a certain way because they see you go to the voting poll and other people are yelling at you for not voting their way or whatever, you're not going to tell your 3-year-old how politics work. But so, you know, if you want to do this is just what it is, and I'll explain it later.
One man
that's
throw.
a case where you've gotta.
Oh, I was gonna say one man throw doo-doo at other man. That's how I would explain it to a 3-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's much easier to convey the basic human value concepts to a child than compared to like quantum physics and all this stuff. Like I think it's like not easy but manageable to convey why killing people or hurting people is wrong just because from the standpoint of a human being who lives their life and different other people are the same, they are living their life and you should not impose on their experience. And it's the same thing, and I think just from basic logic can be explained for stealing or like different ways of abuse and all the things we now consider to be immoral.
Sure, and the average child isn't going to be highly compelled to do those things. And the average child will have an ability to understand personal impact. I mean, and your explanation for it is great, Divine Evil. I wish I would remember that for when I have kids. But even an explanation like, do not murder Sally because you would not like it if Sally murdered you. Actually, most kids can get behind that. It doesn't need to be more complicated when they're that young. It's like, oh, I don't want to die, so I shouldn't kill people. Okay. And they'll accept that for a few years.
Yeah, I think that morals is one of the easiest concepts that can be explained to a child. Like children are not like as dumb as we assume they might be. I think that they can, based on their again core values and human nature, understand what you're trying to convey with basic words, something simple. You do not have to invoke the difficult philosophical structures into it. I think it can be done pretty easily, and I think that a big problem with the communication of that process is that we do not have any structure to educate people about it right now, and people have to figure out it to their worst ability.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and then I do want to make sure we pass the mic around again a bit, but I think one of the things to maybe watch out for though is, when your 3-year-old becomes 16 or becomes 26, you would hope or should educate them or hope they pick up somewhere the reason why their rationale should change. If you teach your child at age 3, don't murder people, you're going to hope that they have that same value at 23. But hopefully the reason is no longer dad said killing people bad. You want their reasoning to develop with their age, even if the idea doesn't. And we don't have structures to do that, but anyone who's a parent, I would encourage you to help facilitate that, to help your children develop more advanced reasoning for things that they've already believed. Maybe they'll change the belief. Of course, the murder example, I hope they don't.
Encouraging children to understand and adhere to the law of the land is an important part of that, because the moral foundation you become convinced is the best foundation. It's important when considering your well-being to, if you do care about that, to see how your moral foundation comes into contact with the law of the land.
Trav, if you can get Jay Woods and Scientific in here for a second, I'm going to try to switch devices again and see if I can get my mic to work. I'll just come back to this if it doesn't.
Yeah, you bet. Let's go to Jay Woods first. We're talking about morality and relationships. Oh, he ran away. Scientific Best, you're up, buddy.
Sorry, it took me a sec to find the unmute button.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to get caught up.
Okay, yeah.
It sounds like we're talking about developmental psychology.
Well, we're talking
morality.
about morality in relationships specifically. Like, can you have two people? Let's talk about intimate relationships. Can you have two people in an intimate relationship who do not see eye to eye morally, and can it still function well if they're challenging each other in a good faith way, in a helpful way that allows them to maybe compromise on some things they still have moral adversity to or with?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I guess it depends on what you mean. I mean, obviously the conversation shifted toward children, but I tend to think of spouses and significant others, friendships, that kind of stuff. And my first gut instinct is to say it might work as long as your morality, or at least the aspects of your moral systems that conflict, don't end up arising often in your day-to-day life. So to give you an example, I might think like a good global or national goal would be to reduce the planet's population. And that's a sort of moral claim that I have, right? But the other person might not believe that. They might believe that we're perfectly fine expanding to 1 trillion people on the planet. But that's not necessarily going to affect our daily lives. It's just something that's more abstract and out there. And we're never going to encounter a situation in life where we will need to act on those moral principles and realize that conflict. But even where morality conflicts or moral systems conflict, I still think that it kind of it can work as long as the stakes are low and as long as you're okay with a certain degree of conflict between you and another person. I think about all the relationships I have with religious people, and some of them have certain moral opinions that I don't agree with, but for the most part, we get along, and we have a lot more in common than we have, not in common. And so I think most people can kind of get past that. But again, the stakes need to be low. But if someone else thinks it's okay to murder my family, obviously I'm not going to be friends with them.
If I can ask a follow-up to that.
That wasn't obvious to me.
Well, okay, assuming you love your family. I'm sorry, I have some presuppositions in this conversation.
That's all right. Kind of what I wanted to ask is so I get the point that if a friendship with someone, take that belief of, and it should not have more people. I understand a friendship might not be contingent on that idea. But to me, I would say an intimate relationship could be, in the sense that maybe you don't think that you should have kids because that'd be another person on the planet, but your partner really wants kids. In that case, that seems to me that's kind of deal breaker, maybe.
Yeah, no, that could be. Yeah, I don't necessarily think antinatalism necessarily implies that you don't want to have kids.
No,
I think
not necessarily.
Because you could be I don't think anyone else should have kids because they're all inferior. But as for me and my family, my genes are definitely going to propagate because my genes are the best. Someone could have that kind of view. So yeah, I don't think one implies the other, but you're right though. I think that the question of do I want kids or do we want kids can split up relationships. I've seen it happen a lot. Ideally, you talk about that early, though.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I think there's a handful of things. I can't list them off as I don't have a list, and I think it differs by couple, but there's a handful of things you probably should talk about early, that being one of them, particularly if you know you have a strong stance. You know, if I hate going back to this example again and again, but if you're really big on murdering people, you should probably just be upfront about that, because most people aren't gonna want to be with you if that's your stance. So you should probably just kick that one out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from a pragmatic point of view, you might not want to incriminate yourself on the first date, but
True.
but that being said, I agree. I think, yeah. I mean, if you're Clyde, you want to find Bonnie. Like that makes sense.
Of course. Well, and also, I'm thinking of this now, but there's multiple layers to some of these issues. You might, maybe you've already had the children talk and you agree you both want kids, but one person is Jewish and the other one is Hindu or something. I'm picking ones at random, and there's an insistence. Each person insists on raising the kid with that religious upbringing. Oh, now you have a problem. And depending on the couple, how they're going to rationalize that. But I do think you need to find a solution, preferably before you have the hypothetical child.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think people when they're younger tend not to ask those questions quite as much because like the decision point on something like that seems like such a far off thing. But I find a lot of my adult friends and myself, you know, that's something that we kind of tend to talk about pretty upfront right off the bat.
Yeah.
But
I think. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that kind of made me think. I used the phrase decision point and how far away it is. I really think that kind of hits on what I think is the crux of the matter. It's like if you have differences in your moral opinions, the point at which the stakes get high, the point at which it becomes important to the relationship, is the point at which you have to make a decision on the basis of those moral opinions. And so that's where conflict truly lies. Although, I mean, you can make inferences about someone's general character based on certain moral opinions they have, and that could, you know, make you feel better or worse about the person. But I think probably the thing that sort of makes or breaks a relationship um, when you have differences in your moral systems is the how high the stakes are, and having a nearby decision point really elevates the stakes, no matter what the conflict is.
I guess I would say, like, can you clarify what you mean by decision point? Because the way I see it in my head, right, is to use this same example of maybe there's a disagreement about having or rearing children, right? Like, that's not relevant until you are preparing to have children or engaging in child producing actions, whatever they may be, adoption, sex, whatever. But I would think you would really need to be thinking about that far in advance, because that is a lot of time and energy wasted on a relationship if you fundamentally are going to have a problem at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a situation where the decision point is less influential because the stakes are already pretty high. And the stakes being, you don't want to waste, 5 or 10 years of your dating life, um, only to find out that the person you're with doesn't want to have children later on. Like, you want to find that out and find someone who's compatible in that way, because that represents the stakes. Like, essentially, you're having to choose between, um, do I want to have a child, which is a super important decision in someone's life typically, and you know, do, you're having to weigh that with, like, so whether or not you address it up front, like, I guess that's the question I'm trying to get at. Um, it sort of depends on what you how high you perceive the stakes to be. And I think most people, especially as they grow older, perceive the stakes to be higher and higher as parenthood becomes a more real, um, thing in their lives. You know,
Yeah, I
but
think I
like,
see the point you're making with
but
that.
but if you ask like a 15-year-old, like, is that an important question you bring up in the first year of your dating life? They're probably not. They're probably going to say no. That'd be almost a strange question to ask,
Right, of
a
course.
15-year-old peer. Um, but someone who's 25, you know, might be much more interested in that question.
Sure. And that definitely makes sense, and I would agree with that. Um, I think the other side, because this occurred to me while you were talking, I think the other side of what you're saying with the decision point thing is maybe the situation where you have a close friend and maybe you've known this person 12 years and you've, for whatever reason, never talked about politics. And, day comes along, you have a big political disagreement. You couldn't have foreseen this. This was not ever part of the landscape. And that becomes a decision point. Like, can we continue the relationship that's here, the friend relationship that's here, on the grounds we know there's now this thing?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I agree though that that does make it harder. Um,
Mhm.
I remember, um, I mean, I've had friends that, like, so I became an atheist later in life, and I've had friends that are evangelical Christians, and many of them know that I'm an atheist, but many of them don't. And I would say that the differences are not very significant between those two groups, even though it's a pretty important existential question. And I think the main reason is because, after an initial like back and forth about, you know, why you believe this, and, um, what you would want for the other person and all that stuff. Once you kind of have that conversation, you can make an agreement to prioritize, other aspects of your relationship, I think. Um,
Mhm.
and I know other people who do. But I mean, I think sometimes it points to people's character. Like, if I found out that someone was a white supremacist, and I was friends with them before I found this out, I would, you know, um, seriously question a lot of things about them. It would probably not square with the kind of people I would hang out with anyway, just because I feel like there's correlations in people's moral attitudes. I think everyone kind of understands, you know, just in general, like, someone who votes a certain way tends to have like a whole range of opinions that kind of tend to follow a trend. Um, and, so you can, I think, reasonably make some inferences about people based on very specific moral claims that they make. Um, so that would factor in too. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's kind of about stakes still. Between me and my religious friends, it's the stakes are low. They might perceive them as high, but for me, they're low.
For me, it's a combination of stakes and values. Certainly stakes, like you've said, and also the value component of, it depends on what's really important to you. If you and other person have a disagreement on this one thing, but that's not the most important thing to you. You value your relationship with that person and the friendship and their character and things like that more than this one issue you have a beef with.
Totally.
Then yeah, you make it work. But if they disagree with you on like the most critical thing, if your moral foundation is at the bottom and this is like the next thing, then yeah, if you can't make that work, then your prerogative to choose not to do that, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess it really depends. There's probably certain things that people could say to me that they believe that I would, where I would tell them like, hey, I'm not okay with that. I prefer that we not be friends or talk to each other. I'm sure that there are certain things like that. Like, I mean, yeah, totally.
And it also raises some, like for me, it raises some conflicts with the concept of marriage, because like when people decide to marry, they essentially force one another to be together despite the potential for future conflict, and even worse when one of the spouses, usually a female, like tries to uh, negotiate the marriage too early, before you even have a like sufficiently clear understanding of the other person's opinions and goals in life, and then it's just complicates the things further than they already were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to, um, I don't know, to at least talk about everything that you care about most before you decide to marry someone.
I'm gonna jump our mic around for a minute. Amy, Wise Ape. Hello. Uh, any strong opinions on morality and relationships? You can either go with the friends and family path or the intimate relationship path. Up to you.
Did you mention me?
I did. You and
Okay.
Wise Ape both haven't talked, so go forth,
Yeah,
Amy.
I would love to comment. I am just saying goodbye to my children, so the other person can go first, and then I'll be able to talk.
Cool. Hey, Wise, got an opinion?
Maybe. Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. It's very general. Any strong stance on morality and relationships, either friends or intimate relationships you pick, is it important? How important?
I would probably um, I don't have a formulated opinion right now. I probably couldn't speak on that.
Well, I'll say so far, if it inspires anything for you. We've kind of talked about how important with raising kids, but also like friends, maybe you care, maybe you don't care. That might be a little different.
Well, I was listening to the last person talking, and they said it would be, beneficial or important to list out what you cared about before you got married. But, things can even change. Somebody could have a belief in God before they're married and say that's the most important thing in their life, and then they could discover skepticism and change, and so people do grow. You just have to be willing to grow together if you're going to stay together, and that's what I've experienced. And it's hard if you have children because that you have a lot of people to talk to if your faith changes, grandparents and stuff who may be clinging to certain beliefs, and you kind of have to live your own life the best you can with another person. You're in a relationship, and hopefully, yeah, it's fun to grow together and still have mutual respect for one another. If you don't see eye to eye on every issue, like you both don't have to like the same movies or every single thing in life, but you can appreciate the other person for who they are. And I think keeping communication open is important, and also like respect. So morality wise, I think respect is like is key, like a healthy respect for one another, and love for the other person.
So I guess the piece of that I really gravitated to, and I'll ask you this, and I'll ask other people after we get Amy and Dal in here for a bit, is like if you're in that situation you describe where something you fundamentally believe changes during that relationship, do you think it's incumbent on you to tell your partner or to try to work through it? Or, what do you think's your responsibility when that changes?
Well, from experience, I don't know if I would tell my partner right away, because when something like that happens, immediately you just want to tell the world, but there's emotions involved, like with the other people that you might share it with, and it just, if you can find some maturity with talking about how your views have changed, not trying to really convince the other person that your way is right, but it's hard sometimes to navigate that, because you just have to keep your passions in check and still be willing to listen to the other person at all times, because if they're conservative, they part of you should still be conservative. You don't want to shift. You don't want to turn the car around too abruptly. But there's nuance to that. Everything I'm saying isn't like a broad brush. It's like kind of, I'm painting a broad brush here, but it's kind of like the general idea how I see it.
Fair point. I want to jump over to Amy because I think she's ready to share, and then we'll come back to that. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is my favorite topic. Not necessarily with like morality per se, but what you guys are talking about with, coming to a place within a marriage or any kind of committed relationship where you kind of just hit this gridlock. And I think that when people get to that point, if you've been with someone for a while, and I think you tend to avoid all those most contentious issues, and then over 15 years you kind of get down to that last issue that you've avoided, the big issue per se maybe, and no one wants to budge, right? And so you go to counseling and they tell you, they teach you how to communicate and say, when you do blank, I feel blank, because right? They think
you got it.
Communication is the problem. Well, maybe communication is not the problem. And maybe compromise is not the solution. And so I always talk about my favorite author. I don't know if you've heard me in this channel. Are you the psychologist, Alexander? Hello?
Sorry, you're kind of, at least for me, cutting out a little bit, so I missed the question.
Okay. Are you a psychologist? I thought I remembered seeing that somewhere.
Counselor, but yes, therapist.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Well, are you familiar with David Schnarch? He wrote the Constructing the Sexual Crucible and Passionate Marriage.
I know the name. I have a sense of what some of the work is. I've heard you mention him before, but I haven't studied his work extensively. No.
Okay, well, he has a very unique perspective, which I guess isn't entirely rare, but I think most of the contemporary psychology, world is still kind of on what he calls the old paradigm. And so he finds that, trying to encourage partners to compromise and thinking that communication is the issue kind of promotes what he sees to be the problem, which is more of an enmeshment, right? So we become enmeshed with our partner. Mm-hmm. We expect them to make us feel safe, right? And to make us feel good about ourselves. And, that's what intimacy is supposed to be, right? Or so people think. Intimacy is where when I share something about me and you validate me and you accept me. And right. That encourages and facilitates further enmeshment, when really the couple is so enmeshed that they start to feel like smothered, and they feel like they have compromised enough, and they feel like they have lost respect for themselves, right? And so they blame the other partner. They blame the other partner because they have acquiesced all of their wishes, or they've compromised away everything, and the other partner feels the same way. So his solution is very kind of flies in the face of at least the things that I was taught in marriage counseling. And I read this man's book, and man, I couldn't put it down. It was this dry, technical textbook, but I was fascinated because it explained everything. And his take is that if you're doing it right and you picked the right person, you will hit this gridlock. And it's designed that way. He'll say marriage is a people growing machine. And it's where you learn how to grow up. And the solution is a matter of maybe standing up for yourself, and maybe standing up for yourself despite the other person's anxiety about your choice. Meaning, you don't need to compromise, because we compromise to such an extent that we compromise our integrity. And so that's an important point. It's one thing if your spouse asks you to do something that, helps them to manage their anxiety. And maybe, like in the beginning, we're willing to do all kinds of things to like win someone over, right? Like everything's rosy and rainbows and sunshine and unicorns. And then, your mask starts to slip a bit, and you start to, maybe get frustrated that you feel like this person is controlling you, lo and behold. But you realize, or maybe you probably don't realize, but hopefully you ultimately realize that you chose to kind of change who you are or act other than how you would normally act in order to accommodate their anxiety. And so it's okay to do that, but we tend to slip into a pattern of doing that. And then you start to compromise your integrity in order to accommodate your spouse. And that's where people start feeling like crappy, and they feel like, they don't respect themselves. And so his solution is about differentiation, is the word that he uses. And it's kind of just like becoming more interdependent. And he talks about it's a dance between, wanting to be our own person, but yet wanting to be in a relationship with another human, because we have those two distinct drives, and they kind of butt heads. And so what you would do is you would assert yourself. You would be okay with what, say you decided to become an atheist, and you assert, I am now an atheist. I'm okay with it. And you don't have to be, because we often want the other person to be okay with it too. especially when we change. And, you learn how to set a boundary. And what do people do when you learn boundaries? They push against them and they want you to change back, and you're disrupting the dynamic. And so, a lot of what the person who spoke before me was talking about is, growing together. And I'm not sure what he meant by that, but really it kind of means growing into yourself and allowing the other person to do the same. Because what happens is you stand on your own 2 feet, and you learn how to soothe yourself with your anxiety, and you learn how to be in the presence of your spouse when they have anxiety, whether it's related to you or not. And so that's the goal. And nobody teaches us that. Nobody teaches us how to validate ourselves, and nobody teaches us how to soothe ourselves. We rely upon our parents to do that. And then we expect our spouse to act like our parent, and unconditional love. And, you're not supposed to make me feel bad about myself. And we're all kind of codependent in that way because we have an external sense of self, and we end up letting the other person define who we are by how they respond. And so that's why we're willing to acquiesce, because we want that person's acceptance, right? We take the other person's behavior as a reflection of who we are. And so if they don't agree with our behavior or they don't support our behavior, we can't handle that. We need them to support our behavior or our choices or our values. And how dare you not do that? How dare you, have your own perspective on something? And so it's a really fascinating, way to look at things. It's brilliant, in my opinion, and it does fly in the face of the conventional idea of marriage and solutions and communication. And he just says that's old news, and you learn how to apply that. And man, it's powerful. When you can be who you are and not need the other person's agreement, you're dangerous. And I will tell you that it scares people away because they can't manipulate you and they can't get you to do what they want you to do. And other people are pretty easy to manipulate. And so what comes out of that, this is the last thing I'll say, is that the other person forms what he calls, and I love this, a begrudging respect, right? They don't like what you're doing, but you are just like, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to do it. And then you let the other person have their choice. They get to make their own choice about that change in you. And usually we try to rob the other person of their choice. We want our choice, and yet we might not want the consequences of that choice. We don't want them to leave us. And so we try to get them to, quote, be reasonable so that we don't have to choose between the marriage or between divorce and being who we are. And so what happens when the other person has begrudging respect is that person starts to stand up for themselves. They are paying attention, and they learn from your example, which is beautiful. That's how it's supposed to work, according to Dr. Snarch. And then the other person starts to kind of stand up for themselves, and the first partner doesn't like that. And so one partner's growth triggers the other's growth. One partner's growth triggers one partner's confronting themselves, triggers the other partner confronting themselves. So Dr. Schnarch will use the inherent struggle that the patients present themselves with in a counseling session, and he will use that as a treatment. And, he does tie in like family of origin issues, but he will help them solve their family of origin issues in the present situation as it's presenting himself. So he doesn't have to create any kind of, conflict, or he doesn't have to test out anything. He uses exactly how people present, and he doesn't advocate for the marriage. He doesn't approach therapy like, I am here to help your marriage succeed. He says, I am here to help you get what you want, ma'am. And sir, I am here to help you get what you want. And so the partner likes that the psychologist takes her side, but she gets nervous when the psychologist takes his side, because it's like, yes, ma'am, you don't ever have to have sex ever again. And if you don't want to, you shouldn't. And I will help you. I will help you achieve that. But I'm also going to help your husband get what he wants. And so she's like, shit, and so you're in your own bind, because people come to therapy in their own inner conflict, really unresolved old inner conflict from childhood typically, and that manifests and gets projected upon the spouse, and so they end up working through
Yeah.
their childhood shit. Yeah.
So I guess the way, and thank you for that summary. I appreciate that, and I got to look into his stuff. But there's a quote that I don't know where it comes from, but I like it, and I think it summarizes that well. That you should wake up every morning by yourself before you wake up with a spouse. And that could be taken a lot of ways. I think some people take it to mean be single for a while before you get married. That's true too. But
Yeah.
you are and this is at least my stance on it. You are an individual first, and
Yes.
if you can make you as an individual work in a relationship, that's excellent. That's great for people. And if you can't, that's okay too. And something we talked about earlier in this conversation before you were here, Amy. Actually, I don't think Dow Scientific or Wise were here yet either. It is the idea of like if you're shifting your moral foundation, or even you could say your sense of identity for a relationship, it's probably not a very solid moral foundation. Because the idea of a moral foundation, at least as we've talked about it on this Discord, is something so essential to how you believe the world works and you should behave, that you might make compromises, but you're not turning the whole thing around for anybody.
You're maybe playing in it, right? Like you're exploring it before you really have integrated it. Is that what you mean?
Yes, but also like trying to think of an example. Maybe you have a certain goal in mind, whether it be, well-being, or you want to have kids, or whatever it may be. Maybe you're not firm on how you want to do those things, and maybe you adjust to that. Or maybe you eat meat, but your partner's a vegan, and they're not disgusted by you eating it. They just don't like that you eat it. And you guys can work that out together. But if it's something like, I believe this is how the world works, or I have this religious belief, or I can't stand it when people do this thing, and your partner's opposed to that, there probably isn't a compromise there. And if you really believe that thing, then that's something that has to be talked about. But if you're just going to throw it out the window for someone else, then was it important to you in the first place? And maybe it wasn't. And if it's not, that's fine. Maybe you just thought it was important. But if it really is important, don't throw it away because this one person that you have some interest in doesn't like it. There are 6 or 7 billion other people on the planet. Someone will not mind that thing.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that when somebody, I think he talks about the person, like you can compromise on certain things, right? But there are certain things you can't compromise on. You can't compromise whether or not to have children. You can't compromise whether or not to have sex tonight. It's either you do or you don't. And so those are things where the spouse who tends to feel most strongly about it tends to win. And with sex, it's the lower desire patient, the lower desire partner, I should say.
You can compromise on that.
On having sex?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Yeah. Hand job.
Oh, gee. Well, that's okay. But you know what I'm saying? So there are things that cannot be compromised on. And the person who usually feels the strongest usually prevails. However, like what you were saying is that you change your way of thinking, or there's the diet issue, whatever, and you're advocating that the person does not let go of something that they think is important to them just for the other person. They can do that, but then they can't, they shouldn't hold that over their head, but often people do that. And so in one way you can go and find somebody who accepts that about you, or here's what what Dr. Schnarch would say is you let that other person make a choice. And it's maybe an ultimatum, but you make that up to them. Like, this is where I'm at. I'm not going to budge. I'm not going to compromise who I am. What are you going to do with that information? Because ultimately it's the other person's. And so I don't think it's helpful either to remove yourself from the relationship and find someone who accepts you. Why not give that person a chance? Because they're not going to like it. They're not going to want to make that decision. And I think more often than not, they end up giving in because the other option for them is to leave the marriage. And we're so kind of dependent on each other, especially if the other person is dependent on their spouse for their sense of, self, which most of us enter a marriage like that. Like, most of us enter a marriage is thinking that the other person's going to rescue us from ourselves. And how dare they, be their own person, sort of thing. So I think it's fair to assert who you are and stand your ground on things that you don't want to budge on, and let them decide. And usually the spouse who says, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with that," or "Oh, I don't like having sex," all of a sudden, when they're confronted with the fact that this man did not agree, he agreed to monogamy, he did not agree to celibacy. And when you sense that he is serious and that he, gets his choice too, because you're robbing him of his choice in that place. When the other spouse feels that, lo and behold, they're magically motivated to, work on that, because they're going to tell you they're working on it. They're going to tell you they've been trying, and this can go on for eternity. And the other spouse waits and waits and waits, all complaining every single day about it, not realizing that they have a choice too, but they don't want to make that choice either. And so it's just this thing that hangs over the relationship and doesn't get anywhere until it's ready to, you're ready to enter that crucible, you're in gridlock, and it's time to show up.
I think something that you're pointing to, Amy, and I think it connects with something Wise was talking about earlier, is, at least for me, what I would advocate for in this whole conversation is that people should explore and understand their moral foundation before they put themselves in what I think Scientific was calling like a high stakes relationship, like a marriage.
Okay, but don't you think that people learn about themselves in that marriage?
Oh, sure, absolutely, and that's kind of the thing I'm going to clarify on, that you should understand yourself as best you can before you enter into something like that, and you will grow and change over time, and that is an encouraged thing to do. You absolutely should. What people should be cautious of, and this is why I think the moral conversation is so important with relationships, is if you have a moral deal breaker, maybe it's a sexual thing, maybe it's a political thing, whatever it may be, and maybe you're 20 years into the marriage and you've never really been happy, and there's an increasing amount of arguments, and you realize, hey, I've kind of always resented this about you because it flies in the face of my moral foundations. That's a problem, and it would behoove you to try to understand that moral foundation before you get 20 years down the line. Now, there's going to be things that you can't. They're going to change. They're going to morph. New things come up, and you deal with them when they do. But whatever it is that you know about yourself before you start, work with that. Work with that when you know it, rather than letting it fester, is I guess what I'm touching on.
Yeah, but people purposely keep that on the down low because maybe they're not quite okay with it. Maybe it's not such a socially acceptable thing, and they maybe kind of feel shame around it, and they're, and so they keep that on the down low for their own reasons. But yeah, it festers, and then they can't take it anymore, and then it's like, they mention it to the other spouse, and the other spouse is like, I don't even know who you are anymore. When really that's on him for presenting himself as other than authentic, and he is responsible for that, and she gets to make her choice about it too. And so I think that there are reasons. I think people just in general are not very introspective. They don't think about these things. Us on this channel, this is all we do. But I think, right? But I think most people don't, or we can judge other people. We're all good at that. But I don't think a lot of people do that. And so you have to own that you kept that secret.
Well,
and now all of a sudden you want it to come out per se. Now there are other things that don't fall into that category. Maybe that's what you're speaking of, but
I want to kind of chime in here a little bit.
Please do, Scientific.
So, first of all, I guess just to deal with that that discussion, I kind of agree. Like it's up to the person who's withholding information to kind of open up to someone that they're about to marry. Maybe not like a sort of so-so friend. Like who cares? But if you're about to spend the rest of your life in partnership with someone, then you ought to expose yourself. That's really hard to do.
yeah, that's why people don't do it. And then it might cause a fight. And if this is someone you want to marry, you're going to avoid all the fights, which is why you get to that point where there's
Right.
nothing left to argue about. Go on.
Right. So first of all, I don't think it's likely for most people that they will ever find and marry someone who is just a match for them on every level. And
It'll be boring.
you're gonna have some of those things out there no matter what. I guess you should probably pick the ones like if you had to settle for something you really disagree with, like I think keep the stakes low. Like make sure it's something that's not that big a deal. It's not a huge value for you or whatever. But yeah, the other side of this though, I can understand why people keep stuff from their partners. Beyond just shame, I think there's a very real feeling that a lot of people in the world have where they think, this is my like one shot at someone that I think is kind of okay. And so, they maybe they're not giving themselves enough credit, but it's I think there's a lot of people who are lonely and really want companionship. And
so they present themselves in a way that they think the other person wants them to be.
Right. And I would argue that everyone does that to a certain degree all the time.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like I put on a face for my friends, and it's not necessarily like I'm not hiding something crazy. It's just that like I might be in a rotten mood, but I'm not going to show like, someone that I'm trying to save face with, like I'm not going to be that Debbie Downer to them in that moment. I'm going to try and put on a face. That's like how people work most of the time. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing unless it starts to cause serious problems. So it's just all I'm saying is it's a fuzzy line. I would hesitate to say there's any topic.
I think that's what ends up being the bad thing, though, is there's a lack of authenticity. And here's the deal: your spouse knows. Like, there's not a communication problem, like I was saying before. Your spouse knows what you want. They know very well what you want. They just don't want to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And you do this dance, and you both manipulate each other. And so, you can the other thing that I think they're avoiding is vulnerability. That's vulnerable. To show up and be authentic, because they might not like that. And so, it's helpful to learn to accept yourself and honor yourself and respect yourself and validate yourself. And, it's empowering to the fact that it does scare people away, but there's a freedom in that. And so like I tend to be the same way with everybody, and maybe I'm naive, but you know what, like I am so okay with who I am that I can be silly in front of the group of moms who are a little bit prissy. I can be, I'm kind of the same person no matter what environment I'm in, and I think that's a good thing. And people judge me because of that, for sure, but I don't need their acceptance either.
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum there. Yeah, I think that like there's pros and cons to that kind of um, presentation of yourself and that attitude toward your own self. I
What's
would
the risk, you think?
well, I mean, like there are obvious social advantages to saving face. I don't think that there's controversy in saying that. I think um, you necessarily make trade-offs when you bare your soul to people. And if you're willing to accept those trade-offs, then more power to you. I think that's good. As long
Yeah.
as it doesn't seriously disrupt your life in ways that matter to you, then that's a good thing. But it's also possible that had you lived a different way, that you would have a different experience of life, and you might prefer that too. And I think there's plenty of people who would say that. But I would hesitate to say one is better than the other. People like I don't know people are who overshare. Like there's a that tends to push people away on its own because so,
Yeah.
like the rule of reciprocity when it comes to sharing and being vulnerable,
Oh, that
it's like
that's one of the big things he talks about, because that's an expectation that our culture has, and that's an expectation that counselors tend to have, because that's the other part of what intimacy is. Not only I share myself and you accept and validate me, but then you share something of equal vulnerability scale. And when the other person doesn't do that, we are that much more vulnerable, and then we try to pry something out of them because we're vulnerable and naked, and they're still sitting there with their armor on.
yeah, no,
And
I see what you're saying.
it doesn't have to be that way.
What I'm trying to get at is while I think that culture does come to bear on that to a certain degree, I think it's an innate human quality. I think that's part of how people get to know each other. I think there's a sort of natural sense of like, how much trust are they putting in me? And you're weighing how much trust you should put in them on that basis. If they don't seem to trust you that much, then I think it's pretty rational to not trust them as much.
Here's
Um,
here's the deal with trust as I see it. I don't have to worry about whether or not someone is trustworthy to share and be vulnerable, because I'm okay with who I am and I'm okay with what I share. It's not a secret. And
it's
what
low
they do with
stakes,
that,
right?
what they do with that is up to them. And you know, I when you can trust yourself to handle whatever they do with that information, and it doesn't diminish you when they betray you, then you don't need to trust other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really unpopular opinion, but it's something I like to talk about because I worked really hard to get to that point. I was very insecure, and desperately needed others to approve of me. And I was the, what do you call it, people pleaser. And
Sure.
so that kind of relates to something else I was going to add to what you said um, about being a certain way, being not entirely authentic. And the other issue with that is when you portray yourself to be, when you present yourself inauthentically and this person falls in love with you, do you ever really feel loved? And you might blame them. You don't even know me, lady. Like my spouse doesn't know me. And maybe it's because you didn't show up. And that's on you. And so in order to really feel loved and accepted, which is what we all deeply crave, we will never get that if we don't show up authentically. And so you don't give
Yeah.
the other person a chance. You're depriving them of the chance to know you, and you're depriving yourself of the chance to feel loved because you're protecting yourself from getting hurt. But
So
those
can
are the
I
consequences.
can I offer a slightly different paradigm on that?
Yeah.
I I look at it as sort of placing a bet. What you're doing when you decide to share something about yourself and be authentic in that way is you're betting that whatever comes out they're going to be okay with, and things will move
No,
on. And well,
no,
no, but
Let him
well,
finish, Amy.
let me finish saying this. If you're not making that bet, then the stakes aren't high. What I'm like, the fact is, like, if you don't care about their response to what you're saying, to what you reveal to them, then the stakes aren't high for you. What I'm trying to get at is it ultimately is a bet, but you might be willing to make that bet really easily because the stakes just aren't significant to you. Whereas for someone for whom the stakes are very high, they do value that relationship to such a degree that even hiding parts of themselves is worth it. I
oh,
think
absolutely.
that's a calculus that they're making that I think is rational, because they're weighing the risks, and they're making a calculation on that basis. What I'm saying is that in your case, I won't pretend to know what you think or how you feel, but what I would guess is that you make the same kinds of risk calculations, but you just have a different set of values and you weight things differently than other people do. But it's the same basic calculation.
Well, I am not afraid to put myself out there right off the bat because, I'm not going to waste someone else's time and I don't want them to waste my time. So I'm very straightforward. I will lay it all on the table, and I mean, I'm sure there are certain things that I, still am more sensitive about, but really, with what I've been through and why I'm grateful for the struggles that I've been through, there's nothing that can compare with the struggles that I've been through, and to learn something in that experience and that pain and struggling with having all those things thrown in my face, even in court and used very much against me on top of, a lot of lies. I've experienced the backlash of that very much so. And it impacts my life because it was done in court. And I was honest in court, even though it did not behoove me to be honest, but that is my integrity. I value my integrity. And so when I value my integrity, and it's a pretty high up there on my values, um, if you don't accept me as I am, I'm actually really okay with that. And I don't take that personal because it's not.
So, one, and you guys can keep talking on this. I want to reissue invitation to Dal and Contradiction and Divine
Yeah,
Evil
I've
that
said
they can
enough. Sorry.
It's okay. No, I just want to remind them they can jump in whenever they want. Because I'm gonna jump in. And just say, I mean, I think there's truth in what you're both saying, that people want to be, to Scientific's point, people want to be liked, they want to be loved, and they're gonna hide certain things. I mean, you're not gonna go out on a first date or even before a wedding. You're not gonna say, "Oh, here's every embarrassing thing I've ever done, and here's every."
My husband did that actually.
Oh, geez, but
he said these are the horrible things you're going to hear about me. Literally, I think it was either right before he proposed or after, and he told me all the horrible stories. And he's like, "There it is, So it's out there. You heard it from me, and what that's up to you." It was hilarious.
well, I guess good on your husband.
Well,
Most people aren't gonna tell you every embarrassing thing they've ever done or every stupid tweet that they ever posted online, or
right.
I can be a little, maybe they've never been aggressive with you and they never will be, but I can be aggressive at times with some of my friends, or there are things that people hide, and fair enough. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's natural. But then also to the point Amy was making, that yeah, I would agree, you shouldn't hold other people responsible for knowledge they didn't have and didn't want. If there's, maybe you did that one stupid thing when you were 20, and you chose to keep that private because it was you and you were 20, and why do they need to know that? Fair enough, you can keep that private. And when it eventually comes out, maybe it's something that really offends your partner, they don't owe you accepting that. they didn't know. You didn't share it. You have a right not to share it, but they have a right to not be okay with it.
Yeah, for everything though. Like that goes for everything. And I think the reason that people withhold some of that stuff is because, yeah, what if they tell someone else? And I try to teach my kids who are 9 and 12, like if someone calls you a nerd, or like calls you something that is done in a negative light, how powerful is it for a child to say, hell yeah, I'm a nerd. I am the biggest nerd in this school. And don't you forget it, man. What are they going to do? So they're trying to make you feel like little. They're trying to shrink you down to feel good about themselves. And you sit there and you own it, whether you really own it or not. Or you just say, I disagree, but you can think that of me. People don't know what to do with that when it doesn't work. And so if you can be okay with all those things that someone might find out about you, you are untouchable. And yeah, they're embarrassing and there are things that I wouldn't want people to know, but you know what? I've forgiven myself for those things. I understand why I did what I did when I did it. And so, like I'm okay with it. And so go ahead and tell the world, and then they can't hold it over your head and they can't manipulate you with it. They can't threaten you with it. And I think that's what people worry about. Acceptance is one thing, but then in a divorce, what's he going to do with all my dirty laundry? And so what I would try to like teach my kids, like I said, is to just, act within your integrity, and then you don't have to worry about that shit. When you lie to yourself and you do things that are outside of your integrity, you feel shame about that because you acted outside of your integrity, and that's on you. But the downside is just, again, where you don't feel like the person really knows you. And so we have a craving for that. So we want to share these things with people, and we're nervous about it because we don't know how they're going to react, and we're worried about what they're going to do with that information. But if you can just be okay with what they do with it, not need anything from them, not need their acceptance of it, well, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear, and you don't have to worry about whether that person is trustworthy, because you also can't predict people and you can't control other people. But it's hard to get there, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
Oh, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So we had, actually, we just had Skeptic join us. Welcome, Skeptic.
Hello. What are you guys talking about?
Well, we're talking about morality and relationships, and I was actually just going to pivot the topic a little bit, so you're here at a good time.
No, we're not. We're talking about Amy's divorce.
Okay, maybe a little bit about that, but
you guys want to get into that, the biblical side of that?
Well, I actually want to get into something that Travis has touched on before. Relationships have come up before on the channel, particularly in terms of sex. And Travis, I think the way he always has phrased it, and I don't know if he's still listening or not, but was laying out your non-negotiables. So, maybe there's a thing you're really into or a thing you're not really into, and that's it. I mean, I'm not moving on that, and we got to have some agreement before we're going to move forward, kind of thing.
I do agree with that. So when I was young, I didn't really have too many non-negotiables because, one, I didn't even know who I really was. So since I didn't know who I really was, it was kind of like I was still kind of figuring things out. But now I know who I really am, and now I know what I really want. And it's like there are certain things that I can negotiate, but certain things that I cannot.
Sure. And so on the topic of morality and relationships, which is our main topic for today, does anyone have any moral non-negotiable? Whether you're in a relationship with someone or, you have been or going to be, whatever it is, what are some moral beliefs that you have that someone's got to meet me on that? I can flex on other things, but I need this agreed upon.
The amount I'd be willing to flex depends on how good looking they are, really.
Okay, so maybe that's part of it too. But I mean, do you have like a core?
Because like if they're
beliefs?
good looking enough, then right. I'd be willing to put up with some serious shit.
Well, if I may throw this one out,
on that, but
if I may throw this out
Please.
to the room, Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah. I just, for the men in the room, everything's perfect about this woman, 100% perfect. There's nothing you would ever change. The only problem is she thinks that it is immoral to give a blowjob, and you will never ever receive a blowjob ever again in your life. Is that a non-starter for you?
Are you talking to me or
Anyone?
We're pointless today. Just completely pointless today. Why would any girl think like giving a blowjob is immoral?
Well, just and there, yeah, there you go. You might
girls
think,
out. Is that immoral?
well, yeah, you might
If I eat a
think,
girl out, is that immoral?
yeah, you might think that like she's just completely full of shit, but that is her one thing. Let's say her justification is like, let's say her justification is like, I think it demeans women, but on every other topic of feminism, you agree with her. But it's that thing where you're just like, she's out to lunch on it.
Receiving?
But let's say she's the perfect woman otherwise that you want to marry and have kids with. Can you bend?
She's out the door.
Yeah. So for skeptics, she's out the door.
now that I'm older, she's out the door. my three main requirements is: one, belief in Christ; second, flat Earth; and third, some of the sexual stuff that I like.
Right.
Okay. And those are pretty much my three mandatory things. They have to do this. If not, out. That's why I barely date anymore. I haven't dated in a long time because barely any female can meet my requirements. So.
Would you tolerate the mercy blowjob where she kind of half-assed?
Ooh, no, that's worse.
No.
That's worse than getting one.
Yeah, it is. People tolerate that shit.
No.
People tolerate that.
No, actually, Louis.
I want to hear her choking.
It gets icy here on Morality Mondays.
Meow.
Meow.
Oh, jeez, where have we gone?
Yeah.
Into the gutter.
Sorry, that's my fault. Shut the fuck up.
Pangburn, how about anal sex? Don't you want to bring that one up?
Well, yeah, I was gonna go there next. Look, there's one that maybe some men or women would be happy.
Never thought I'd be talking about this right now.
Well, they would maybe there's some men and women that would be happy to give that up if they found the right person. But do you think that there are some people who couldn't? All they're just going to want to do for the rest of their life is have anal sex with a partner that they never could.
Yeah, it wouldn't be sustainable if their needs aren't being met.
Well, and wouldn't they just eventually just fall off the wagon and blame something else? Like, oh, we were just two different people. It's like, no. Tell me the honest reason.
That's the thing. You got to be authentic. That's what I've been preaching.
I've done it before, fuck the girl in her ass and stuff, but like, I don't know why it's not really my thing. It's not really my thing. I'll do it just for her,
Hitchens,
but like, it's not really, me.
Christopher Hitchens said it's one of the most overrated things in the history of mankind. There was anal sex. I'll have to look up the other two, but that one resonated with me.
Yeah, vaginal sex feels better anyway. So.
Taboo as it used to be, but it used to be pretty taboo, and so I think that's what draws people to it. It's like so naughty, dirty.
It's because it's dirty. That's what draws people to it, because it's like dirty. So, both in the kinky side and like in reality, because we all know what the heck comes out of that hole.
If you narrowly define sex as like normal intercourse, and you forbid sex under exactly those terms, like many Catholics do, then that becomes your only alternative, or not your only, but one of the main alternatives for you. You can kind of get around it. It's like a loophole.
Do you think it's naive for people to think that they can just like say it's your primary sexual fetish? Let's say it's like having something fluffy in the room or something like that, or being able to see images of pointy buildings or something. So if this person, if you can't have this with this person, is it naive to think that you can just fucking overcome it? Just I'll power through this for the right person. I think May said that it's just going to be too much eventually, right?
Yeah. There's certain things like me. Like I dated an atheist girl for a few years. It just like the longer it went on, the harder it got, and it just didn't work out. So.
Literally, no pun intended. The softer it got.
But no, it just didn't work out. Like too much arguing. She saw things one way, I saw things another. It was just whatever.
Yeah, you have to stand up for yourself.
And then at the end, after we break up, I end up finding. Well, I don't date anymore, but I end up finding another girl, and I'm just like, whatever, let's have sex. And I'm just like, she gives better head than her. That was the first thought in my mind. I'm all like, this girl gives way better head. What the hell? So
that validated your decision to break up with the other one.
Oh no! She cheated on me. So that already pretty much validated my decision.
I sensed some animosity there.
What?
I sensed a little bit of animosity there.
Oh no! It's, stuff in life.
It's all good. Shit happens.
But it have a good example for everyone to think about, though, Skeptic. I mean, that's why the non-negotiables are important. I mean, not you specifically, but maybe someone's the kind of person that they'll change their religion, they'll give up meat, they'll cut off their left arm, but bedroom protocols have to be met, kind of thing. Okay, that's your non-negotiable.
What I find funny is there's probably stuff like that's true, where people will literally change their religion and like change their beliefs and all this stuff, but they won't change their sex. I find that funny because I'd probably change I'd have an easier time changing my sex than changing my beliefs. That's a whole lot easier for me, and at least
it's different values.
Yeah,
it's just different values.
No, it's just once you have sex like freaking thousands of times, because when you're in a relationship, you have sex with a girl for like I don't know how many times. That it kind of gets you kind of know what it's gonna be like. So it's just like okay, whatever. It's just sex.
Would you like to sign up to like a subscription service, sort of like Netflix, where you get like a new one every couple of months just to keep things fresh?
No, I'm actually not like that. Yeah, like because after my breakup, I only slept with like 2-3 girls, and then after that, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah, so I don't get joy out of just sleeping around with a bunch of different girls. Like I actually like real relationships. But it's so hard to find one at this point that I'm just going to stay to myself.
You just said it got boring after a while.
No, it's not that the sex got boring or anything, which, trust me, it does get a little stale. But it wasn't because of the sex, got boring. It's just that what she was doing, and one, we had different belief system, and then what she was doing and what I wanted, are two completely different things, and I realize that now. And there's a lot of things I didn't realize when I was younger. So it was going to break apart.
People, you guys have more power than you know to get what you want. Just saying. And maybe there are reasons why you hold that back.
Oh no, it's very easy. It's very easy to get sex. This is not a joke to anyone. That's
the way you want it. The way you want it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know it's very easy.
When you said you guys, do you mean men in general, or do you mean guys like him in particular?
Men in general, and probably women too.
Nah, women have all the power in that region.
No, they don't. It's imaginary. It's in your head.
Hey,
I know it sounds like what I'm saying is contradicting, but it's actually in his head. It's not real. We actually have all the power.
We are turned on by a man that knows what he wants and can figure out a way to get it.
No. Well, women here's what women like. Women love to be abused. That's what women like. That is a reality. You've heard this term, women like assholes? women like assholes? Yeah. Why do you think they like assholes? Because they love to be abused. They want to be smacked
No,
around.
Oh my.
no,
Okay. They want to be
no.
treated like a damn whore.
I can tell you why. Well, in a way, but
In a
we
way,
don't.
yeah,
We
sure.
like
Uh-huh.
being. We. There is something, and my book talks about how there is something very intimate with being objectified, like in your marriage. That's
Oh.
that doesn't mean you get to be an asshole, Sunday morning and just like there's a time and a place for that. But yeah, and people are afraid to explore
Yeah,
that
but
because I don't want to be
but
disrespectful to her.
but you can't tell me it's not true. When I was like 14, 15 years old, because I was like a good, those good guys in like high school and shit that never get laid and shit. Yeah, I
Because
was
you were
like
probably
that.
a doormat.
No, I
You were
was like
probably
that
a
until I was like
doormat.
14 or 15.
Do you
The
mean
moment I
incels?
and then I got pissed off. I was like, I wasn't even looking to get laid. I was not even looking to get laid. I was just pissed
Bullshit.
off at girls.
Really.
So I decided I'm going to treat them like complete and utter shit. And I was like, I don't care if they don't like me or not. What happened was the reverse. The reverse actually happened. I started treating them like shit, and they just kept coming to me. And then by the end of it, I had like 7 girls with me, like just
Because
all
you
following me
respected
around.
yourself.
It's
We
not because
like
I
that you
respected myself. It's just because your girl's like, that slap around, man. You like being treated like whores.
Actually,
Okay, that's
what
what you
you
like.
said there,
There's a
I
time and a
read about
place.
something similar to that. It's called the neg.
What?
It's called the neg.
Oh,
When
you're
you
talking
neg
about
a woman.
PUA and stuff. Yeah, I don't believe in that shit.
No,
But
honestly, that's what you're describing. You neg them, and then it makes them more attracted to you.
look, I don't see it as nagging. I just treat them like shit, and they just for some reason like me.
Yeah,
Now
that's
I don't
neg-
even care whether they like me.
that's
It's
neg-
like whatever.
But that's not sustainable unless they have no respect for themselves.
Of course they don't
So,
have any respect themselves. Why do you think there's OnlyFans? Why do you think there's Pornhub? Why do you think there's all
but
these sites where women get naked and webcams? And they don't have any respect for
But
themselves.
OnlyFans exists so that busty
Not
women can have
necessarily.
their cars paid for by their boobs.
I'm just saying that I like a man to be confident and I like a man who will stand up for himself, but I'm not going to be treated like shit. That's not going to fly with me, But if you're a doormat, that's a turnoff for sure. So you can be nice and you can be kind and you can be compassionate and you can stand up for yourself and have some fucking boundaries. And that's the ideal. That's a man.
Yeah, but men usually don't learn about themselves until like their 20s, like mid 20s, like going into 30s. That's when they actually start figuring themselves out. Most guys, not all guys,
Yeah.
but most guys that I've seen start figuring themselves out mid 20s, going into like their 30s and shit. Like that's what I've seen. Some guys actually figure themselves out real quick. Okay, like me,
And
there's
then
some
you
stuff I didn't know
evolve.
about myself. Huh?
You evolve and you change and you grow and you like different things and you want different things over time. And that's good.
Yeah, it's like that now. Yeah, but would I give up my sexual kinks for like, a perfect woman? Well, the perfect woman comes with the sexual kinks. That's the thing.
That sounds like you
That's the
don't
thing.
know.
The
Yeah, that's
perfect woman in
the
my
You've
head comes
mastered,
with the
yeah.
sexual
you've
kinks that I
mastered
like.
the art of negging. You can go into any club, pick up any 9 or 10 that you want.
Nah, I rather just look. One, I rather just either treat them like crap or just pay them. I don't feel like going into that whole PUA negging crap. I'd rather either
Are we
just pay
soliciting
them.
Skeptic, you should
prostitutes?
start your own YouTube channel and teach people how to pick up women. I think that would
Me?
actually work out really
Oh,
well
there's
for you.
plenty
Yeah.
of that. There's
Yeah.
plenty of that out there.
No, I think that's your
Nah,
niche. I think that's your
nah.
niche.
I'm good. I'm good, man.
Oh,
Look,
No, you'd be
right.
great.
my
You'd be
need
great.
someone
trust me,
to
trust me.
teach
My
me
belief, even though
because
even though I sound like an atheist right now because I'm talking about all this like sexual stuff, I'm very biblical. I'm a very
Oh yeah.
biblical person.
No. Yeah. You get biblical with the women. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm
no,
sure
just
Jesus
look
wants you
into
to
it.
treat
Just
them
start
like shit.
your own channel. It's not hard. You just use
No,
your webcam.
I already
and just
have a
tell
I already
people
have
how
a
it is.
channel. I already have a
Good.
channel but it's more about biblical stuff.
Does
than that.
Jesus
Yeah,
does Jesus
throw
want
that
you to
link
treat
in
them
the
like
in
shit?
the Discord.
Yeah, exactly. He
Throw that
doesn't.
link in
One,
the
he
live chat.
doesn't, but he also wants the women to change. it goes both ways. So I'm just like, okay, one, God doesn't want me treating them.
So you're just
okay. I
you're
won't
just
treat
playing
them.
your part.
Yeah, I'm playing my part, but then the other part is on the women. Okay, if I treat you good and you don't like me, that means you're not worth it. That's how I see it now. But because if I can treat you like shit and you want to freaking suck my dick in a damn library, you know, then it's like, why would I ever date you? No.
Seriously,
So
yeah. Start a YouTube channel, dude.
Yeah, I already got
I'm
one.
sure you'd have 1 million subscribers in like 2 weeks.
No, I doubt it. Like
Details.
If we were just talking right here, right now, I might get a bunch.
I think you're entertaining.
I'm entertaining?
Yeah, you're very straightforward and you're very, you have an entertaining way of presenting your information. And I think that's an asset.
Yeah, I guess, but
I think you should do skits. I think you should demonstrate your theory.
Role playing.
Yeah.
I'll role play with you and your YouTube channel.
I know. You like me.
Look,
you like shit. You want me to smack you around and heck. Okay, I get it.
I'll smack you around too.
Yeah, something tells me Amy would have her way with you, not the other way around.
But you know what? That's how I come off, and man, that's a problem because I have a strong personality and I'm very assertive, but I don't want to dominate your ass all the time. Like that's not.
You're not
who
supposed
I am.
to. Your natural nature is to be submissive. I mean, that's your natural nature is to be bent over and get fucked. That's how women are supposed to be.
I'm like the bratty sub, though.
Yeah. No, but trust me, you guys would not like me if we were in a religious debate. You guys would freaking hate me. You guys would freaking.
I doubt.
If we were
seriously doubt
Christians versus Christians,
you
you guys
one
would
of
hate me.
those weirdos that believes in Jesus and all that shit.
Well, I already said I'm a Bible believer, so
I'm joking.
Wait, do you believe in Muhammad?
Sorry if my background noise is horrible.
Do I believe he existed? Yeah. Do I believe in everything he says? No.
Did you say that you were a flat earther, a very, very religious Christian, and a wild sexual person?
Am I a what?
You're just very free and open with you seem to think the idea that some people that no woman would withhold blowjobs. There's all kinds of Christian sects that don't allow that kind of thing. What my question is, what Christian sect are you in?
I don't have a Christian sect. I just believe the Bible and I learn as I go. And I kind of let the Holy Spirit. Teach me.
Doesn't give a shit what anyone thinks about him, and he's got women giving him.
What sect did you come out of?
Guys, don't overtalk each other. I can't understand anybody.
What Christian sect did you grow up in, or were you?
No, I grew up Catholic. I grew up Catholic.
All right.
And then my mother became Christian, and I was like, what? And it's not so much that she became Christian because she always believed in Jesus, but something changed in her, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And then I didn't believe it at first. Of course I didn't believe it. I was an atheist. And then later on in life, I had my own experiences and my own things, and I was like, okay, he's real. He's real. So from that point on, I started believing, but I didn't do it correctly. I was still doing it completely and utterly wrong.
Do you think
I was dating an atheist.
Do you think Jesus Christ would approve of, how you speak about relationships and talk about women?
Well, it's reality. I can't deny reality. I'd be lying. One, I'd be lying to myself, and I'd be lying to him. I'd be lying to God also. I'd be like, hey, look, this is what these girls like. This is how they want things. Okay, this is how they want it. It doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean he likes it. Doesn't mean I agree with everything about it. But it's the way it is, and I accept it. I accept it. That's how it is right now.
Some girls are, and those are the girls that you gravitate towards because they put up with that shit because they don't respect themselves. So maybe Jesus would want you to respect them, even if they don't respect themselves.
Mm-hmm. She just wants a cock down her throat. That's all she wants. That's all she wants.
My question was for Amy.
She just wants a cock down her throat. She wants me to shut her up.
Don't answer this, Amy, if you don't want to. So you said that you like to be treated like a slut. You said that you like to be dominated. Yeah,
Treated
somebody
like a
said
slut.
I like to be treated like sluts, and you said yeah.
That's a normal female thing. They like it. I don't get it really.
Time
But, you
and
know.
place. I've mentioned that there's an intimacy with being objectified. It's like the man just is allowing himself to be the man.
Yeah.
The
Haven't you
hunter,
guys haven't you guys ever
crime-
fucked?
And
haven't
then
you guys?
you're also a dominant personality. Did you have a close relationship with your father? Like a healthy, close relationship with your father?
Define close. I mean, I think so.
Like close as in sexual.
I don't think so.
I mean, I wouldn't say that we're close, but we had a good relationship.
It's like you guys, like your parents were married and he was like around and that kind of thing?
Married. I mean, my mom wears the pants, so maybe that's interesting.
Did he get stuck in the washing machine and then say, "Stepdaughter, help! I'm stuck"?
No, he was not like that. No, but he was past it. You know, he was a bit of a simp. You know, kind of like he lets my mom walk all over him, and I don't respect him for that, and I try to help him to respect himself. So. That definitely influenced how I am. You know, I grew up with a domineering mother. And so that, you know, for a while I was super shy and super insecure. And, but that's kind of what I witnessed. So maybe that influences me in just my, you know, the domination comes out because that's what I grew up with. Even though, you know, and maybe that's why I like to be dominated because it's just, you know, it's a novelty.
Yeah, no, girls like this thing where like I don't know. Yeah, like you said, they like to be objectified. Because I remember this one time, like it was with my ex.
Yeah,
we were like in the kitchen. I just pulled down her pants, fucked her, busted it. Like literally, I just busted a nut real quick as fast as possible. And basically, I treated her like I was just like, "That's what you're good." I just told her straight up, "This is what you're good for."
Yeah,
you know, this is what you're making me bust my nut. I busted my nut, and then I got out of there, and she had
one thing to be like,
between her legs, and
like,
she just would not get off. After that, she would not get off me because all I did was use her. Like, and I
she probably
and you know
wouldn't get off you because you didn't finish her.
More men would benefit you to learn how to use someone, and it would benefit you to learn how to let your spouse use you. Like that's a high level of intimacy in a marriage. Like that is using your sexuality, and that is eroticism that is very rare these days because people can't handle that with their spouse.
You ever have this victorious moment where you achieve exactly what he was just describing with a fierce feminist?
Have I?
No,
not Amy.
Oh.
Like you ever, it's like you ever have that moment where like somebody who's, you know, who will in public say that everything that he just described is exploitation and manipulation and psychological, you know, psychologically unhealthy and, you know, puts men and women in a terrible relationship. And then the second you get them in the bedroom, they're the ones that are begging for that the most. Or am I just speaking?
Oh yeah. You can look at this online. There's I'm not gonna name the site, but there's a site I went on. Like this was a few years ago. Okay,
may as well name it.
And there was a bunch of there are other people in there, but there was like a section of just pure feminists, and they all admitted that they freaking hate feminism. They're lying, and what they really want is to gotta just bend them over, fuck them, and use them. Like they were literally admitting it in the post. Like outside, some of them were political feminists, meaning that they're like out there being political.
This is slightly off topic. I don't know if anyone else cares, but we could theoretically move on to other topics.
But I just feel like this is. I feel like what he's describing here. He keeps saying the word "just." Like what they just want is just to be bent over and used. And I'm like, well.
Yeah.
I don't.
Sometimes they do.
Oversimplification.
No. It's when I'm talking about when it just comes to sex. I'm talking when it just comes to sex. All they want is to be used.
But skeptic, something tells me that if you would have more than experience more than just with specific ladies, you would understand there are many women that want a variety of different things, not just what you're describing in this simplistic fashion.
Yeah, look, I agree. I agree because every girl that I was with and that I've talked to and that's wanted to either be with me or whatever,
Have you heard of
they're
the
they're all a
girls?
little different. They're all a little different. I agree with that. But for the most part, across the board,
Yeah,
they all wanted.
I
They all
get.
admitted to me that they just wanted to be used.
Yeah, look,
Yeah,
there are
come
there
to
are
Russia and try to kick one around. If you're gonna fuck you up.
there are
Try
women
that.
there are women that may prefer that, sure. But I think what Eliyahu is getting at is that when you say women just want X, you might to improve your clarity, you might want to say, in general, in my experience, X.
No, I'm speaking for the majority of the female population, not all. But
There's
for
a
the
female
majority.
in the room. Just saying.
Yeah, I know, but the stats are on the internet. You know that, right?
I'd be curious what
Which part of
stats
the internet?
you're
Yeah, have you
looking
guys
at.
ever seen? There's this
Like-
YouTuber named Cotain. There's a YouTuber named Cotain. He did there was a study done on dating apps and all this other stuff. Okay, and it turns out that pretty much 80% of the female population is pretty much the damn same. Pretty much like they're all very similar and they all want the same thing. And then there was another post
Drop
coming
a
out
link in the
talking
live
about
chat.
how women actually
in
view
the Discord.
that girls actually view more violent porn than men do towards other women because that's what they want done to them. So it's like, okay, this is all making sense. And then there's also another. It's called a sexual differential.
Just drop your link in one of the text chats and we'll take a look at it.
I got a link for you. It's the international It's the international sales records of 50 Shades of Grey. They ain't men buying that book.
Yeah. Look, I know skeptics talking about this in a way that in a way that it does. Yeah, but look, I think it will be interesting to ask, since we're talking about males' perspective here, if their experience has been that most women enjoy, let's say more often than not, rough sex. Is that the general experience?
First, Travis.
Who wants to go first?
Well, yeah, I would say, well, here's what I'll say about that is that I haven't come across a woman in my time that doesn't like some degree of that at some point. So there does seem to be something fundamental about, if the mood is right, that's what's wanted.
All right, who's next?
Yeah, who's gonna go next?
Who wants to go next?
So
Eli.
what was the question?
Contradiction. Who wants to go?
What was the question again?
Have you thought that there was that for the most part, most women want some form of rough sex sometimes, if not all the time. And are men different in that regard? Because it seems like you're going to find men wanting the same, right?
Okay, you gonna go?
Hey.
Or we can move on to a different topic.
Okay. All right. I'll just say my part. Based off my experience, based off everything that I've seen, they all want some type of rough sex. Now, of course, do I think they want it all the time? It depends on their mood. Like if they're really not in the mood, they're just not in the mood. They're tired from work or whatever it is there is. Sometimes they just want to freaking go to bed. Okay. But we're talking about when they're like in the mood and they're happy and stuff like that. Oh yeah. It's been across the board. They want their throat fucked. They just want to be used. It's just the truth. They just want to be used. They want you to take pictures of them. They want you to just be like, okay, this is what you fucking are. You're a whore, and I'm just gonna fuck your ass until I'm satisfied. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have as much experience as it sounds like you do, but in my experience, I've noticed that on occasion I've tried to play the submissive role just to see like what's it like, you know. So I'll try to like say something that'll be like, well, now you're the dominant one, and it's like if you think about it like levels. So like we're both at a dominant level of 50, right? And then I go to 40. I'm trying to be the submissive one. And if I go to 40, she'll go to 30. If I go to 20, she'll go to 10. It's like she's always trying to get underneath to make sure that she's the more submissive one. It's hard to explain.
No.
Like if I say, you know, if I say that I want her to do something to me that would make her the more dominant one, she's like, yeah, but then you'll flip me over and then really do that to me. Like, you know,
you can't really tell her, because then you're still dominating her. If you're directing her, then it's not the same thing. You know, you can't really tell someone. It's different if you tell someone to dominate you, or if they just kind of spontaneously do it themselves. It's probably a different experience for you, but yeah, you can ask for what you want, and maybe they can, you know, pull that out of themselves. I think everyone has that in them, but it's harder for some, of course. But I think in the absence of a dominant man, you know, that tends to, someone's got to be dominant. And so sometimes by default, that becomes me. And it's not, you know, I can do that, but that's not sustainable for me either.
Yeah. Well, what I tried. Well, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking.
I'll speak after you're done.
None of you know who I am, right? Okay.
I do.
Yeah, I know he does. But the rest of you, whatever. I'll just move to Alaska after this broadcast is over. This fantasy of like where she just totally ignores me. So like where she's either like playing on her phone or like on her, you know, DS or watching TV or something, and I come over, do anything, and it's almost as that she doesn't notice me at all. Right? Especially if she's talking on the phone to somebody else.
Okay, you have that little cuck fantasy. Yeah, that little cuck fantasy shit.
Cuck?
No, it's kind of being humiliated.
No, it's not with another. No, it's not with another guy. I would have thought that it's more in the vein of what you're talking about, with like I can use her, you know, because she knows that that's what she's there for.
Yeah, no, look, it's not like I've never tried the whole. I'll tell you the truth. It's not like I've never tried the whole submissive thing. But here's I'm going to tell you this from my experience. I did it once, and she tried to take it a step further. And then she tried to take it another step further, and another, to the point where she was literally trying to emasculate me. And I was just like, "Bitch, get the fuck out of here!" To the point, look, just to give you an idea, she literally said, like, she wanted to get a strap on and fuck me in the ass, and I was all like, "I'm not gay. And I told her straight up, "You're the one that gets fucked in the ass." I told her straight up, "Look, just because I let you get on top of me and I let you kind of, you know, be a little dominant, that doesn't mean shit. I'm still the guy. I'm the one with the dick. I'm the one that fucks you. That's how it goes." And she knew from that point on. It was done. It was done. From that point on, I just fucked her however I felt. She hated giving head. I didn't give a fuck. You give head, bitch. You have to.
I think that men who are in a dominant role, in like maybe their work life, they tend to be, because you'd be surprised the people that want to be humiliated and dominated. There's a lot of them, and it'd be surprised who they are. And
it's always at
they
no.
want
What
to
I'm
give
noticing is it's at the top. It's some of the guys at the top. A lot of, like, I've seen this a bunch of times. It's either a guy with a lot of money, or it's a really tall guy like me who's like really muscular, but they want to be dominated. They want to be humiliated by a woman, and it's like, I don't get it, but you know, whatever.
Well,
That's
the problem is now that you've got too many. You probably, if you've got as many women yearning for this as you're saying, you've got a bunch of men in the West who are so worried about consent that they're not going to traverse any of these lines that you're talking about.
Oh, that's because unfortunately, here's the truth about having sex in today's day and age. Basically, you have to lie about everything. Basically, hey, what's your name? Oh, my name's Skeptic. Yeah, that's what they name me. And you have to literally lie to her, tell her this, fuck her, and then you literally have to completely ditch out and leave. And you have to let her know nothing about you. Basically, all she needs to know is how you look.
think you have to do that?
Because there's so many women doing fake rape allegations. Filing for abuse when really she agreed with it.
Do you think there are so many, or is it just a few who abuse that?
Oh, no. There's a lot because there was an Indian kid. It was on video. Like this girl claimed abuse that he abused her.
No, I know that's one case.
Drunk and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's one case. I'm just asking, like, when you say a lot, what do you mean by that?
40%.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what the statistics show. Like 40%,
can you post?
Something like that.
I'd be interested to read wherever you're getting that.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up again, but there was a post, a long time ago, where it was like 40% are considered domestic abuse and blah, blah, blah during a sexual intercourse when really it wasn't, when really she agreed with it. And not just that. Have you seen Kevin Samuels on YouTube?
Kevin Samuels.
Do you know who that is?
No.
Yeah, it's this black guy on YouTube.
He has like 100,000 subscribers a day telling women to fuck themselves.
Yeah, basically what happens is he's had a ton of women come on his show for 3 years. And he said, like, that, their ex-boyfriend or ex-husband abused them or something like that. And he asked them, did you call the cops? And in the 3 years that he's been live on show, only 2 women have called the cops. That means the majority of men aren't abusing them. That means
that's not what that means.
They're playing the Me Too card. They're playing the Me Too card.
That's not what that means. Yeah, there are many different reasons as to why they wouldn't be calling the cops. Now, I think it's a terrible thing if someone is to claim that they have been raped or abused and that didn't happen. But of course, some women may not call because they're afraid for their safety.
Yeah, I know they're afraid. Some of them, I know.
Right.
I know. So I don't even blame them. I don't blame some of them. I know for a fact there are some women who are innocent who actually were abused, and I understand that concept. So I get where you are coming from.
When I think it when you say there's a lot, I'm not like I'm just interested to see like when like what kind of data do we have on that? How do we verify whether they are bullshit or not?
Do you know about MGTOW and red pill and black pill? Do you know about those 3 things?
No, I don't think so.
I know about MGTOW and red pill. Yeah.
MGTOW, red pill, and black pill. They all basically go about women differently, but they have a ton of information on there that's actually very true. The thing is, each one goes about it differently. Black pill says it's all about looks. MGTOW just says they don't want to date women because of what they've been through in life. Red pill is kind of like that whole PUA game thing, where they're like, oh yeah, let's kind of play the game and stuff like that, with a little bit of MGTOW into it. But basically, they all have different information. The thing is, if you grab all the information from them, all 3 of them, and you combine it together, you start to realize that it's actually a really big problem right now to date women. And it's very, how do I say this? Unless you don't care about the risk factors or anything like that, then it's very risky to date. It's very risky to date women right now. So
no, I think that if you read all 3 of those subreddits, you would become paranoid and never want to talk to a woman again.
Black pill makes me. Black pill.
Because everybody on there is telling their own anonymous, embellished story about the abuse they suffered at the hands of their wife, with no admission of guilt on the part of themselves as husband. So it's like I'm always very suspect of people who claim 100% innocence. Same with those women on that call into Kevin Samuels' show.
Yeah, who say they're 100% innocent. Yeah.
Completely innocent, and they think that they were God's gift to wives everywhere.
No, I see. what I don't see accountability more is in Black Pill. In Black Pill, I noticed they don't hold themselves accountable for like anything. Not all of them, but most of them. MGTOW and Red Pill, they do kind of hold themselves accountable somewhat. Probably not all of them, but some of them do.
It's one of those things where if you
Definitely
just
Black Pill,
started,
like they're just
if you just started going into the community, they have some good basic advice, like don't be a doormat, don't let a woman walk all over you. But then you get deeper into it, and then they start talking about things like last minute resistance. You know about that concept?
Oh, hell no. I never even heard of that. I don't get that deep into it.
Oh my gosh, they're all about this last minute resistance that you date a woman, you bring her back to your apartment, you're making out, you're about to have sex, and then there's the LMR, and then there's all these articles, the last minute resistance, how to overcome the last minute resistance. It's so gross to me. It's so gross, dude. I'm like, ew.
I don't know. That's just retarded to me. That's retarded to me. I know about MGTOW, and I actually agree with many things in MGTOW. Not everything, but many things. And I've never heard of the last minute resistance, and it sounds stupid. I'm just going to be real.
Hey,
that's why I wanted to
Google how to overcome LMR.
Oh, God.
How to overcome LMR. The lesson of the day.
So, I'm sorry, but that sounds so. Oh my God, that sounds so virgin. That sounds so virgin. How to overcome last minute resistance or something? It's like whatever.
Hey, Alex, do you want to do one last round of the topic here, or get back to it? I think are you muted? I'm hearing YouTube feed from someone.
One last round of the topic.
I think it's
Alex muted. I'm hearing YouTube feed from someone.
That's me. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah. I was also answering a YouTube chat comment, so I'm kind of bouncing.
Oh yeah, what's going on there?
We have Josh, who said, let me try to find the initial comment. Would like to hear morality from anyone that thinks we are a complete cosmetic accident. So I was responding to that, but I won't fish that too much into our conversation, because then we're going down a rabbit hole we'll probably spend 5 hours on. But I encourage you to see some of other Pangburn YouTube channel videos, though, Josh, and I'll keep chatting with you while we're on. Anyway, as for this topic, if anyone else has any comments on morality and relationships, feel free to share. But also, back on the point of any moral non-negotiables that people have come up with, feel free to share those. I think Skeptic did a really good job laying out his, even if there's some disagreement on the details. We got faith, flat earth, and sex. So does anyone else have an easily discernible non-negotiable moral for a relationship?
I think the more what about, and just to throw an example out there, guys, like
some of them are muted. So.
Yeah, I think they're just thinking they know how to unmute. But just think about, like, if someone thought it was okay to beat your children if they're misbehaving, right? Is that a non-starter for you if you're looking for a partner who you're going to have children with?
Nah, I'd help her out. I'm joking.
And I can say for me, it's not a non-starter. I'm not a fan of the idea, but in certain situations, depending on what the child did, if that will get the point across, I'm open to the possibility. Though I prefer to try other things first.
What he said, I agree with him.
I disagree there. You can't be open to having your kid punched in the face just because it's been naughty.
Well, not punched in the face for naughtiest. So I would have certain guidelines on that. But if Trav's just speaking generally about, like, is there any use for any kind of corporal punishment? Yeah, sure. Maybe like the traditional examples, like maybe spank or something's useful. Don't punch the kid in the face. No, I'm not.
I'll tell you a story of mine. My cousin was already like 12 at the time. So he can finally take a hit. So I was in the room. I'm already a grown adult. Huh?
Take a hit of what?
No, he can handle a hit. Okay. But basically what happens is they were all in the room, all the little 12-year-olds and stuff. They were all in the room. They were all, they were arguing. My cousin was arguing with some girl. And they had a disagreement and they kept arguing. And I'm like, whatever, who cares? Let them keep arguing. And then out of nowhere, my cousin punches her in the freaking face just because they disagree. And I was like, he did it right in front of me. And I was like, oh, you're getting your ass beat now. So I was just in shock. So I grabbed him, I put him into the room, and I'm all like, why'd you hit her? Why did you hit her? You're arguing. Who cares if you disagree? You don't hit her just because you disagree. And I punched him in the face real quick. I didn't punch him super hard or anything like that. And then I smacked him around a little bit. I was just like, you don't like that, right? I told him straight up, hey, look, you don't like that, right? Okay, so why did you hit her? Because when he punched her, she just stayed quiet. So I'm like, go back into the room and apologize to her right now. Okay? And I told him, you don't punch a girl just because you have a disagreement.
And when do you punch a girl?
Huh? When she hits you. When she hits you first.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's when you're allowed to hit a girl. Okay, and even then, like, if it's like a joking kind of hit, like, like, ha, you know.
What
that happened
if
to me.
it's a trans girl?
Yeah. What if it's a trans girl? To the stake.
Yeah,
No, I'm joking.
the rules different there.
Let me stop joking. What are you gonna do, man? Like, it just depends. Is it a playful hitting or is it just like straight on like violence? If it's straight on violence, yeah, you can defend yourself. But if it's playful hitting,
I'm thinking like sexual assault kind of thing.
oh no, you can kill for that.
Very
Anyone who
different
tries
issue.
to like rape or anything like that, you're allowed to kill that person.
But it's amazing to a lot of the people who say that they're so against, like when people talk about rape or sexual assault with regard to their own daughters or their sisters, they always are like, oh yeah, man, if anybody put their hands on my, oh man, if I was there, I would just, But then they're the ones that are most tolerant of this, I'm going to use a word here, rape culture that it sounded like you were just espousing earlier.
Oh, me?
Yes.
I never mentioned anything about rape culture.
No, that's a phrase that I'm using.
Okay.
Your attitude toward women wanting to be.
Oh, no. I think rapists should be killed, both men and women alike. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says anyone who rapes, the Bible says anyone who rapes, they're to be killed. So I agree with that.
See now, see that what you seem to be describing is an attitude where a girl doesn't really consent, but deep down she really does consent because earlier you were like, oh, well, she doesn't like giving head. Fuck that. You're gonna give head because that's your job. That sounds
no. Because there's a difference between, hey, look, we're dating. You don't really like giving head, but you're gonna give me head. I'm not gonna force you. I'm telling you this right. You're going to give me head. And I'm not going to force it. I'm going to tell her, get on your knees, give me head. Going to do it. Okay. Well, she will. Okay. She will. Okay. And she will do it. Okay.
What if she doesn't?
We should probably pause before we get into the semantics of that.
Yes, we should actually. Good call.
After this, when we all go in the TAV, you guys can semantic that out all you want. But
we're on Alex's
Trav
time
has been
right now.
Demonetized on YouTube before. YouTube does not need this. Let's be very specific.
Yeah, looks like I'm probably going to court with YouTube anyway. So fuck it.
We don't need to help Trav on that front.
Yeah. You're right.
We don't need to give YouTube more ammo.
Yes.
But if there's any other strong positions on morality of engaging with another human in an intimate relationship, feel free to hash that out now. Otherwise, we can go in the TAV and you can have your
I think it's TAV
sexual
time.
Exploit conversation all you wish without regulation. I'm fine with that.
Well, Alexander, thanks again. This was incredible. This took a very interesting turn all of a sudden when Skeptic came into our lives. Thanks
I do that
to new subscriber Skeptic. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you found the Discord. Everyone else.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
My YouTube channel is called Why Non-Believers Are Idiots. Okay. And yes, I know.
Well, I hope to have a conversation with you about your YouTube channel. That would be fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Alexander, thanks again for Morality Monday. And let's head down to the tab. Everyone who is on YouTube, we have 240 viewers right now. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in. Try coming and joining us on Discord. We have a lot of fun. We're almost at 1,000 subs on Discord. A lot. Come join us. We're gonna jump down into the tab and have a more general conversation. And as always, let art and science inspire. We will see you tomorrow.